All right. Welcome, everybody. I have 1 p.m. We're convening the special session of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners, 112 North A Street in Cripple Creek in the Centennial Building. Today is May 24th, 2024. Call the meeting to order, and we have our quorum, all 3 commissioners, county administrator. John Evans is operating the computer, and we have Mr. Herman, our county attorney, online. Today's purpose is for a first reading of a Teller County ordinance to protect the right to carry firearms in sensitive places in accordance with Senate Bill 24-131.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, the draft that I provided to you, I've made some suggested revisions. I'll address those first. And if they work for the commissioners, then I can add that into what I read for the first reading. But in the, let's see here, in the locations where carrying would be permitted, in Roman numeral 1, I have revised that to include the entirety of the Centennial Building so that it would now read the Centennial Building at 112 North A Street in Cripple Creek, Colorado, including the Teller County Board of County Commissioners meeting room, the offices of the county commissioners, and the office of the county administrator.
So does that imply that if you're the finance director, you can't, or is that included in the rest of the building?
Well, the Centennial Building would include the entirety of the Centennial Building, and then inclusive of that is the meeting room and the specific offices. The statute states that you can permit it on the property or within any building in which your chambers or offices are located or where your meetings are conducted. So I read that to allow the entirety of that building.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, does that make any sense? Any questions about that?
And I was just questioning, or not questioning you, but questioning what you just clarified. So it's the entire building from the bathrooms to upstairs to the janitor's closet, but you specifically wanted to call out the rooms that we occupy as elected officials, just to clear up any confusion, right?
Correct. Yep. And that tracks the statutory language because it talks about your chambers and meeting room. And then in the 3rd section of the statute talks about the chief executive officer of the local government. So that's why I put in the county administrator.
Thanks, sir.
It works for me for that change.
And
Okay.
Paul, their possible change,
Sure.
or good is the statute, if I remember correctly, does say specifically the offices of elected officials. Is that correct?
It does, and that's where I've got it in that Roman numeral 3. But we have to, we're not allowed to have carry in the courthouse. So if you read it, if you look at number 3, I've got the official offices of any Teller County elected official, except the offices of the assessor, clerk and recorder, public trustee, and treasurer that are located in the county courthouse. The clerk and recorder and the treasurer, I believe, have ancillary offices over in Woodland Park. So those you can carry there, but you cannot in the courthouse.
That does bring up the question, Paul, of Tamarack writ large, CDSC, DHS, the DMV office. Is that specified here too, that anybody could carry there as well?
That is a good question.
You remember I used to carry, the county knew, Cheryl knew, just, in case it was a problem in the DMV, so I'd hate to create winners and losers if our intent is employees as well, or.
Yeah, the entirety of the Tamarack Business Center, there are private businesses there.
Right,
So it'd be difficult to include the entirety of that space.
unless it was Tamarack specific to those offices occupied by county employees.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think we can go there. At least the way I read the statute is because they're not elected officials, like over at DHS and planning, they're not elected members of the governing. They're not they're not elected.
Yeah, the
officials.
way I read it is there's not a restriction on local government buildings. It's local government buildings which house elected officials, correct?
Yes, well, that's a good point. As I'm reading it again now, I don't know if you have the statute in front of you. So B subsection 3 says the official office of any elected member of a local government's governing body or of the chief executive officer of the local government. So I think that we need to take out the other elected officials because they make it specific to the elected members of the governing body, which is the Board of County Commissioners.
Ross does have a second office down there, so if we call out Ross up here, he's got a Tamarack office too, then if there's a way to include that, I just want to make sure he's covered, Paul, if he had to use one or.
Well, is that revising Roman numeral 2? Because that's actually suite 230.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then before is the large conference in next door.
What's that number of that suite?
230.
Yep, so in 2, I've got the Teller County Board of County Commissioners meeting room at 800 Research Drive, Suite 230. But then you've got the adjacent office. Is that still considered Suite 230?
No, 224.
Okay. I can add that. But as we're looking at this, I do think that I need to take out the other elected officials as I reread that subsection 3, because it's specific to the governing body. I don't know why they did that, but that's what the legislature did.
So by, just an intellectual question, Paul, I hear what you just said, so by omission, if I'm the county treasurer and I have a concealed carry permit issued by the sheriff, can I carry it? If let's say we weren't in the courthouse, or we were in the service center. So you're right, it seems like they're only looking at governing bodies, so they didn't take anything away that person could have already had from before this bill. So it's just a question.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I'm looking at the section that does not apply to the county is really talking about where the General Assembly is located. And then in subsection B, they're talking about where the local government's governing body is located and its offices.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to ask ourselves what problem they're trying to solve. Nobody done, but if you're a county commissioner, you can have one, here's where you have it. Then by default, does that mean all the other elected officials are unaffected? I mean, it's really confusing.
It is, yeah, it is not well done because they've not contemplated other government offices. You know, they seem to contemplate everything is included in one centralized government office.
So all rereading section 2, number 3 sub, yeah, section 2 number, that'd be Roman numeral 1. It says, and actually right before that under B, it says, unless permitted by local government as described in subsection 4B, on the property or within the building in which, and then it says the chambers or galleries of local government's governing body are located. So just in our verbiage, we need to make sure that we're clear that it is permitted in the building and the parking lot in which those, you know, so It'd be building and parking lot at 800 Research Drive, Suites 230 and 224, and the Centennial Building. And should we have other language in there that also simply states and any other county location where, because if we hold a work session at Public Works, then that becomes a place of a meeting of the governing body. So we could cover that just by saying, or any posted location,
Sure.
Sheriff's Building, any of those could be, because we meet in a lot of different places. So we need to have language in there that covers us in any county location. And actually, I mean,
Just do a blank.
what if we held a work session town hall at the U Cultural Center in Willow Park?
Well, that is in Woodland Park, so I don't think
Right.
you have the authority to permit it inside another jurisdiction.
But Tamarack is actually in Woodland Park also.
What is our building?
You
Is
see,
it our,
The county.
if we're using it, even if it's a $0 lease per se, just a collegial agreement. Another reason to not rush legislation.
This is all discussed.
Yeah, it's all happened.
But I think broad language would be in our favor there.
Yeah.
And just simply state, or any,
Office, the governing body tends to meet in, or
It travels with us, Paul, like when we declared an emergency out at the live fire station, for example.
right. So I think if we did any posted location for a meeting of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners.
bingo,
Yeah,
that works.
And then I think I'll do including their adjacent parking areas at the beginning of it so that I don't have to repeat it in each of the subsections.
That works.
I'd say adjacent property and parking areas, because then you're covering sidewalks, the whole property.
Well, the statute only talks about parking areas.
Okay,
So yeah, I think you have to then jump over the sidewalk.
got it.
So I'm being facetious, but I think there, for example, like at Centennial, the back parking lot, then it is on the property.
yeah.
And then the adjacent parking lot is on the property of the county. So I think you're covered there.
Okay,
Let's see here.
yeah, but they do state on the property or within building, and then the parking areas. And so the on the property part would be, sidewalks, green space, correct?
Say that part again.
So on the property would include sidewalks and green space.
I believe so, yes, yep. Like that picnic table
Yeah.
adjacent to the parking lot on the property of the Centennial Building.
Right, or the location of any public meeting of the BoCC.
Okay. All right, so let me change this up to Tequila a little bit here.
Paul, I think you scratched my itch on page 2 of your document under section 4. For everybody else, whether you're an employee or another elected official, you say the Board of County Commissioners permits persons who are not otherwise prohibited from owning or carrying firearms to carry firearms on the property within any building listed. Now, if we have that umbrella language, Ross could always have a policy about who could carry a gun. We've been through that before with this county, but I think that was the umbrella paragraph I was looking for to cover everybody else other than us.
Yeah, and that should be consistent with the recital that we've been talking about. So I'm gonna make those things consistent because we need to have that in the body of the ordinance, not just in the recitals.
Right.
And then another way we could do it is the recital, we could take those out of the recitals and leave the recital broad and then have these specific places listed in section 4. right now it's repeated, so you got it in the recital and in the body of the ordinance, and that might be redundant.
Yeah, I think what started the confusion for me is in your recital, it's specific to the governing body, right? So I'm looking at what can the county commissioner and the administrator do? What I thought you were doing in section 4, scratch the question I had, and it's everybody else other than the governing body, the 4 of us. And your intention in section 4, the lead-in seems to be that unless there's a policy Ross has for county employees, everybody else can do what they've been doing. Because it specifically says us as a governing body permits persons who are not otherwise prohibited. That's a little different than what's in the recital.
It should be the same.
No, I mean, your language is the same, but the recital, I think, specific to the governing body, it allows us. And then my earlier question was, what about an elected official that's not in the courthouse? What about John if he wants to have a gun?
Yeah,
Section-
no, it should, yeah, the recital is not specific to just the 3 of you and Ross. Because
Good.
the recital says Teller County exercises its authority through this ordinance to permit persons not otherwise prohibited from owning or carrying to carry such firearms on the property or within any building listed in the statute, including the following places in Teller County. So
You're
that would
right.
be everybody. That's just not you.
Yeah, so you think it's redundant then have section 4? And the
Um, Yeah, because it is supposed to be the same, so in order to avoid any differences, I could take it out of the recital and focus in on the body of the ordinance in section 4.
yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah, we're good with that, Paul. I think it makes it cleaner.
Okay. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out the other elected officials, add in any posted location for a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. And I've got the Suite 224 as well, correct?
Yes.
224 and 230, yeah.
Okay. So I will add that in there.
And Paul, one other thought is just looking forward to the future. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Looking forward to the future. When we move out of Tamarack, I'm wondering, are we just covered when we state any posted meeting location of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners? Without listing Tamarack specifically?
that would be. I will also add in, I'm going to change subsection 3 from the other electeds to the official office for both of you. So if that office changes, we don't have to change the ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking to avoid, is to not have to update the ordinance if we were to move Tamarack offices and have a new meeting space in Divide.
Okay.
But I think we're covered by the any posted meeting language.
Okay. Give me just a minute here as I fix up the. What I think I'll do is keep the any posted location for a meeting in the Roman numeral 2, just because that matches up with the statute, which says a meeting, property or a building in which a meeting of the governing body is being conducted. So that it tracks the statute. Okay, so that recital that we were looking at, on the first page, I'm going to keep that more general, and it's going to read, whereas Teller County, a local government and political subdivision of the state of Colorado, exercises its authority through this ordinance to permit persons not otherwise prohibited from owning or carrying firearms to carry such firearms on the property or within any building listed in CRS sections 1812-1053B 1 through 3, including the following places in Teller County, including the following places in Teller County, including the adjacent parking areas as listed in this ordinance. And then section 4 will say the following places in Teller County, including the adjacent parking areas. 1, the Centennial Building at 112 North A Street in Cripple Creek, Colorado, including the Commissioner's Room, the offices of the County Commissioners, and the office of the County Administrator. 2, Meeting Room at 800 Research Drive, Suite 230, and the office of the County Administrator in Suite 224, and any posted location for a meeting of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners. And 3, the official offices of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners and the County Administrator. So I think that would cover all of the spaces where the governing body or any of you have your official offices, chambers, or meeting spaces.
Beautiful.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I've been making those in the document as we've been talking. So if those changes work, I can go ahead and do the first reading start to finish.
Yeah, I would say go ahead, sir.
Okay. So this is the first reading of ordinance number 22, a Teller County ordinance to protect the right to carry firearms in sensitive places in accordance with Senate Bill 24-131. Whereas pursuant to CRS section 30-11-103, the Board of County Commissioners of Teller County, Colorado, hereinafter the board, has the authority to exercise all county powers for the unincorporated areas of Teller County. And whereas on May 9, 2024, the Colorado Legislature approved the adoption of Senate Bill 24-131, prohibiting carrying a firearm in sensitive spaces recognized by the United States Supreme Court as places at which long-standing laws prohibited carrying firearms, which describes certain sensitive spaces at which the state can regulate carrying firearms. And whereas Senate Bill 24-131 expressly permits a local government to enact an ordinance, regulation, or other law that permits a person to carry a firearm in local government places described in CRS section 18-12-105.3 subparagraph 1B. And whereas Teller County, a local government and political subdivision of the state of Colorado, exercises its authority through this ordinance to permit persons not otherwise prohibited from owning or carrying firearms to carry such firearms on the property or within any building listed in CRS sections 1812-1053B, subparagraphs 1 through 3, including the following places in Teller County as listed in this ordinance. Whereas carrying a firearm in a Teller County courthouse or any other building or portion of a building used for court proceedings remains prohibited, except for law enforcement or security personnel for a courthouse or other building used for court proceedings pursuant to CRS section 1812-1053-2A through E. And whereas the board has the authority pursuant to CRS section 30-11-1012 to adopt and enforce ordinances and resolutions regarding health, safety, and welfare issues. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Teller, State of Colorado as follows. Section 1, purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to protect and promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens and residents of Teller County, Colorado, to maintain fundamental constitutional rights and liberty, and to maintain the Second Amendment rights of Teller County citizens after passage of Senate Bill 24-131 by the Colorado Legislature. Section 2, definitions. 2.1, unless otherwise specified or the context otherwise requires, any terms used herein shall have the same meanings and definitions as provided in CRS section 18-1-901 and Senate Bill 24-131. 2.2, firearm means any handgun, automatic revolver, pistol, rifle, shotgun, or other instrument or device capable or intending to be capable of discharging bullets, cartridges, or other explosive charges. Section 3, applicability. This ordinance shall apply throughout the unincorporated area of Teller County, including county buildings, which may be deemed sensitive spaces as defined by Senate Bill 24-131. This ordinance shall in no way limit application and enforcement of any statutes of the state of Colorado, but shall be in addition thereto. Section 4, permission to carry firearms in the following places in Teller County. The Board of County Commissioners permits persons who are not otherwise prohibited from owning or carrying firearms to carry firearms on the property or within any building listed in CRS sections 18-12-105-3B 1 through 3, including the following places in Teller County and including the adjacent parking areas. 1, the Centennial Building at 112 North A Street in Cripple Creek, Colorado, including the Teller County Board of County Commissioners meeting room, the offices of the county commissioners, and the office of the county administrator. 2, the Teller County Board of County Commissioners meeting room at 800 Research Drive, Suite 230, Tamarack Business Center, Woodland Park, Colorado, and the office of the Teller County Administrator, Suite 230, Tamarack Business Center, Woodland Park, Colorado, and any posted location for a meeting of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners. And 3, the official offices of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners and the County Administrator. Section 5, prohibition on carrying a firearm in the Teller County Courthouse. Carrying a firearm in the Teller County Courthouse or any other building or portion of a building used for court proceedings remains prohibited, except for law enforcement or security personnel for a courthouse or other building used for court proceedings pursuant to CRS section 18-12-105.3, subparagraphs 2A through E. Section 6, severability. Should any section or provision of this ordinance be declared by a court of competent jurisdiction to be unconstitutional or invalid, such declaration shall not affect the validity of this ordinance as a whole or any part thereof, other than the part so declared to be unconstitutional or invalid. Section 7, interpretation. This ordinance shall be so interpreted and construed as to maintain as status quo the ability to carry firearms which existed prior to the passage and adoption of Senate Bill 24-131 within the unincorporated areas of Teller County, Colorado. Section 8, safety clause. The board hereby finds, determines, and declares that this ordinance is necessary for the immediate preservation and protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Teller County, Colorado. Pursuant to CRS section 30-15-405, this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon adoption on the second and final reading. Section 9, effective date. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon adoption on the second and final reading and shall remain in effect until such time as this ordinance is amended, suspended, or repealed. Section 10, certification. The Teller County Clerk shall certify to the passage of this ordinance and shall have on file copies of this ordinance available for inspection by the public during normal working hours. Introduced, read, and adopted on first reading on May 24, 2024, and ordered published in full in the Pikes Peak Courier. And then, so that concludes the text of the ordinance. The signatures for the first reading can be accomplished by the chair, and the clerk and recorder can sign that as well. I think I do need to change that right above the signature block to just say introduced and read on first reading, because it's not adopted.
Right,
Introduced and read on first reading on May 24, 2004. And then you order the publication in the Courier. I believe John's going to take care of that. Then we will we'll do a second and final reading. I believe that will be at the June 18th meeting. And then if there are no changes to that, then the effective date can be that day, June 18th. And those portions of the ordinance can be completed at those on the 18th, as noted there. Any questions?
sure, Mr. Herzog.
Paul, I think you're covered on this, but just to clarify, because it did go back and forth, on page 2, section 4, that first paragraph where you add including adjacent parking areas.
Yes.
So if we were to park in front of Centennial and then they do access that sidewalk into the building, do we have to list sidewalks as written in the original?
I don't believe so, because so the first paragraph or first section of section 4 has the including the following places and including the adjacent parking areas. So the Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3 would include the adjacent parking areas.
And does that have to specify sidewalks too, or no? Because then in the actual.
No, I don't know, because that is on the property. So for example, at Centennial, parking in front of the building is the street. So that's not the parking area. Because that's owned by the city of Cripple Creek. And then the property in the back, as I understand it, that's the county's parking area. So that area is on the property and is a parking area as opposed to the street.
I'm assuming that also includes our part of the parking on Carr Avenue, which are the diagonal spots to the north. Those are actually ours.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
and then, for example, on A Street, if you have a concealed carry permit, you could walk anywhere you want on A Street. But once you enter the doors or come up on the front steps of the building and into the building,
Becomes a sensitive.
yeah, you've now entered a sensitive space.
I have 2 questions, Paul. One of which, under applicability, section 3, says ordinance applies throughout unincorporated Teller County. And these buildings are incorporated Cripple Creek and in incorporated Little Park. So
The thought there, Paul, is it's everywhere in Teller County, and then where we have a county seat that's inside of a incorporated city, that's county property. So I don't know if anybody ever say it's unincorporated and county property. Or do
Yeah, I
you-
guess maybe we don't need the term unincorporated.
Right,
right, that was my question. We could just delete unincorporated.
So then, yeah, so section 3 would read, this ordinance shall apply throughout
Teller County,
Teller County.
yeah. Statutorily, we understand that incorporated cities have their own ordinances and they'll follow suit.
Correct, yeah, but then, yeah, like Tamarack is a great example, because if it's in Woodland Park, if someone enters the area to have a meeting, go to a meeting with the commissioners for a work session or whatever it is, you have the authority to permit them to carry in that safe space. So, okay, so then we would delete those words, and the first sentence of applicability would read, this ordinance shall apply throughout Teller County, including county buildings which may be deemed sensitive spaces as defined in the Senate bill.
My only other question, I know in El Paso County, the district attorney's office is covered by security, which has its own statute in regards to concealed handgun permits in Colorado and where you can legally carry. To our district attorney offices here in the Centennial Building, they don't have any security. Are they covered under this, or is there perhaps a separate judge's order that we need to consider whether or not those need to be cited at all? Because they are in this building.
Well, they do, I believe they have security just in terms of the door is always locked and you have to buzz to get in.
Right.
And it is the building.
And the statute reads, if I'm not mistaken, in regards to that part of the law, it just says buildings in which there is security or metal detector, something like that, that restricts carry. Or restricts weapons, something like that, but that's a whole different statute.
Yeah, so yeah, that's in the Senate Bill 131. It does not apply to, well, security personnel employed or retained by an entity that controls it. And
Probably just, I guess, best to leave it alone.
yeah, so I just, I think it would cover the whole of the building because that we've got the Centennial Building covered. And the adjacent parking area, which is where the DA personnel would be coming and going. So I think they're okay.
Thanks for all your work on this, Paul.
You're welcome. What I'll do is, as read, and then the amendment to that the first sentence in section 3, I will save that, and then send it over to John. It has a draft watermark on that. I think I'll take that out. And what we can do is, I'm not sure if Stephanie is available to sign today or not.
She's in Tamarack. I'm headed right back over there, but she's in Tamarack today.
And I think John was planning on getting it to the courier on Tuesday because the deadline is Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I'll finalize this, get it in a version for him to take care of that part of it.
And also
Thanks, Paul.
for action, we've introduced, we've read, but we have not adopted. Do we need a motion then to adopt on first reading?
Well, you can only adopt it on the second reading.
Just going from the certification on the last page, page 5.
Yeah, I think that is the technical language that we use. So I will put that language back in because you've adopted this version, but it's not yet effective because it has to have the second reading. Then there is the ability for the public to comment on this prior to the second reading. And if there are any amendments made to it, then the second publication has to include what those amendments are. So I believe I'll go back to the beginning where it is, this version is adopted in order to be published in full.
So do we need a motion to say adopt the first reading?
Yeah, we could do that, a motion to adopt this as read on the record, and to order the publication. So the motion would be I move to accept the reading and adoption of the first reading of ordinance 22 and have the chair order it to be published in full in the Pikes Peak Courier.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Stone, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Dan, did you say yes? I didn't hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So I got the motion of Eric, the second Dan, and all yes. All right. Anything else you need from me guys today?
Have a good weekend there.
What we can do is we can adjourn and have, John stop the recording. So if Bob wants to adjourn.
Okay, as of 1:41, we'll adjourn the special meeting of the Teller County Board of County Commissioners on May 24, 2024 at 1:41.